They pointed and jeered at the human warship Prometheus, mocking its unproven teleportation drive as a foolish, desperate gimmick. Captain Brian Lewis glared through the viewport at the assembled Tzenkethi fleet, a vast armada of gleaming alien vessels bristling with devastating weaponry. Joining the ragtag Allied Defense Force, the experimental Prometheus looked primitive and insignificant next to the sleek, advanced Tzenkethi warships. The human fleet needed a miracle. Outgunned and outmatched, they fought valiantly, but suffered heavy losses as the ruthless General Murloc pressed the attack. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and bulkheads groaned as the Prometheus shuddered under the onslaught. Warning lights flashed red and klaxons blared. The ship couldn't take much more of this brutal pounding. With gritted teeth, Captain Lewis rolled the dice on humanity's last hope. He barked the order to activate the Prometheus' unproven teleportation drive, ignoring the shouts of alarm and protest erupting across the bridge and comms. The ship jolted and a blinding white light flooded the viewport. In a flash, the battered human fleet and looming Tzenkethi armada vanished. Murloc let out a bark of triumphant laughter, certain the primitive human vessel had destroyed itself. Then the sensors on his flagship wailed in warning. Impossible readings poured in. The Prometheus impossibly teleported light years from the battle, deep in Tzenkethi space. In the heart of the enemy empire, one lone human warship now held the power to change the course of the war, for better or worse. The Prometheus hung cloaked and silent in the void above Kirillac's Prime, sensors probing the blighted world below. On the bridge, Captain Lewis studied the grim readings flowing across the displays. Sprawling industrial complexes choked the planet's surface, belching noxious clouds into the sickly atmosphere. Vast strip mines and factory sectors stretched to the horizon, powered by the sweat and toil of countless subjugated laborers. "Hell of a place the Tzenkethi have here," Commander Hawkins muttered, her face etched with disgust. "Those poor bastards down there." Lewis nodded grimly. "And the perfect spot for us to slip in undetected. The Tzenkethi won't expect us to fly straight into this hornet's nest." Dr. Sorensen looked up from his console. "I'm picking up some unusual readings from the Northern Hemisphere. Sector Zeta, massive power draw, heavy shielding, could be an important facility." "Or a particularly nasty labor camp," Hawkins said darkly. Lewis rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Either way, it's our best shot at finding intel and any potential allies crazy enough to help us. Take us down, Helm. Let's get a closer look at Sector Zeta." The Prometheus knifed through the turbulent atmosphere, sensors mapping the nightmarish industrial hellscape below. The ship set down in the rocky Badlands on the outskirts of the sector, drowned in the shadows of towering refineries and factories. Sorensen busied himself hacking into local Tzenkethi comm channels, sifting through the chatter for anything useful. His eyes suddenly widened. "Captain, I'm picking up a transmission from inside Sector Zeta. It's an SOS from a Grolaxian prisoner named Zephyr. Says she's an engineer, has vital intel for us." Lewis leaned forward, eyes intent. "Patch it through." A female voice crackled over the bridge speakers, shot through with static. "To any free ships in range, this is Zephyr of Grolax. I am imprisoned in Tzenkethi labor camp Zeta, brutally forced to work in their weapons factories. I can give you access codes to their secure network in exchange for my freedom. Please, I'm begging you." The transmission cut off abruptly. Lewis exchanged a charged look with Hawkins. A long moment passed, the only sound the muted thrum of the engines. "It's risky as hell, sir," Hawkins said quietly. "Could be a trap." "Could be," Lewis agreed. "But we need every scrap of intel and help we can get." He took a breath, then nodded to himself. Decided. "Hawkins, Martinez, prep a strike team. Infiltrate that labor camp and extract this Zephyr. Quietly." Martinez checked the charge on his pulse rifle with a grim smile. "Looks like we're in the prison break business now." As Hawkins and Martinez led a hand-picked squad on their covert mission, Sorensen worked feverishly to splice the Prometheus into the Tzenkethi data network, sweat beading his brow as his fingers flew across the console. Hours crawled by. Lewis paced the bridge restlessly, nerves stretched taut. Finally, a flicker of movement on the screen. The stealth shuttle ghosted out from Sector Zeta, sliding silently through the sensor nets. "Package secured, Captain," Hawkins reported over the encrypted channel, her breathing labored. Pulse fire and shouting echoed in the background. "But we kicked the hornet's nest hard down there. We need to dust off ASAP." "Copy that," Lewis said tightly. "Sorensen, tell me you've got something." The doctor looked up, his face drawn and pale. "I do, sir, and none of it is good. The Tsenkethi, they found something big, an ancient alien artifact of immense power called the Axiom." A chill slid down Lewis's spine. "The Axiom? What the hell is it?" "I don't know, but the Tsenkethi are mounting a major offensive to secure it. A dreadnought fleet is preparing to launch to our home territories. If they get this Axiom..." He didn't need to finish. The grim reality hung in the air like a shroud. Lewis clenched his fists, the burden of command crashing down on him like a physical weight. The survival of humanity itself now rested in his hands, stranded in hostile space, outgunned and alone. "We have to stop them," he said hoarsely. "We're the only ones who can." The shuttle's hatch sealed with a hiss as Hawkins and her team piled inside, their boots clanging on the metal deck. Lewis keyed the comm. "Bridge, we're aboard. Get us out of here." The Prometheus surged upward, shaking violently as it punched through Chiralax Prime's turbulent atmosphere. Alarms blared as Tsenkethi fighters gave chase, their energy weapons lancing past the hull. In the shuttle bay, Lewis helped a slender, blue-skinned alien to her feet. "You must be Zephyr. I'm Captain Lewis. Welcome aboard the Prometheus." Her large violet eyes blinked rapidly. "Thank you for the rescue, Captain. But I fear you've only delayed the inevitable. The Tsenkethi, they found something. An artifact of immense power." "The Axiom," Lewis said grimly. "We know. What can you tell us about it?" Zephyr's expression darkened. "It's housed in a museum on Valaxar. If the Tsenkethi harness its power, your people are doomed." The ship rocked as another volley of fire struck home. Lewis steadied himself against a bulkhead. "Then we'll just have to get to it first." On the bridge, Sorensen's fingers danced across his console. "Captain, I've analyzed the data from Chiralax Prime. The Axiom's location is confirmed. A heavily fortified museum complex on Valaxar." Lewis nodded, his teeth gritted. "Plot a course. We're going artifact hunting." Days later, the Prometheus hung in the inky void above Valaxar, cloaked and silent. Lewis stood before his assembled strike team in the shuttle bay, his voice low and intense. "This is a stealth op. We get in, secure the Axiom, and get out. No unnecessary risks." Hawkins checked her pulse rifle. "What about necessary risks, sir?" A ghost of a smile touched Lewis's lips. "Those are mandatory, Commander." The team's shuttle glided through Valaxar's thin atmosphere, touching down in a secluded ravine near the museum complex. As they approached on foot, Lewis tapped his earpiece. "Sorensen, status on their security systems?" "Working on it, Captain. Just need another minute to, Got it. You should have a clear path to the east entrance." The strike team moved swiftly through the shadows, neutralizing Tsenkethi guards with ruthless efficiency. Inside, they found themselves in a maze of strange exhibits and swirling energies. Martinez whistled softly. "Some collection they've got here. Is it just me, or are the walls moving?" Lewis felt a chill run down his spine as the architecture seemed to shift and warp around them. "Stay focused. We're here for one thing only." They pushed deeper into the complex, the very fabric of reality seeming to bend and twist. Finally, they reached a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing, crystalline structure. "There," Hawkins breathed, "the Axiom." As Lewis reached for the artifact, blinding light flooded the chamber. A familiar voice boomed out, dripping with malice. "I must thank you, Captain Lewis, for leading us straight to the prize." General Murlock stepped into view, flanked by heavily armed Tsenkethi troops. "Your foolish human bravado has sealed your doom." In an instant, the air erupted with weapons fire. Martinez and his Marines formed a protective circle around Lewis and Hawkins as they worked to extract the Axiom. Go! Martinez shouted, his rifle spitting plasma. We'll hold them off. Lewis gritted his teeth, knowing the price of their escape. He and Hawkins sprinted for the exit, the crystalline axiom clutched tightly to his chest. Behind them, the sounds of battle faded, punctuated by agonized screams. They burst out of the museum, Murlock's forces in hot pursuit. Lewis slapped his communicator. Prometheus, we need immediate evac. The ship decloaked overhead, cannon fire strafing the Tsenkethi positions. As Lewis and Hawkins clambered aboard the waiting shuttle, a massive shape materialized in the sky. A Tsenkethi dreadnought overflowing with weaponry. All hands, brace for impact! Lewis bellowed as the shuttle docked. The Prometheus shuddered under a withering barrage, claxons wailing as systems failed across the ship. On the bridge, Lewis clutched the arms of his chair, watching the dreadnought close in for the kill. Push the engines past Redline, he ordered. We need to put some distance between us. As the battered ship limped away from Valaxar, Lewis stared at the pulsing axiom. They had their prize, but at a terrible cost, and the real battle was only beginning. The Prometheus limped through space, its hull scorched and systems flickering. Lewis stared at the pulsing axiom, its crystalline structure casting an eerie glow across the bridge. Status report, he barked, turning to Sorensen. The doctor's fingers danced across his console. Hull integrity at 47%, weapon systems offline, teleportation drive severely damaged, sir. Lewis nodded grimly. And our position? We're far from Tsenkethi space, but not out of danger, Hawkins replied. We need repairs and fast. A gentle voice spoke up from the back of the bridge. I may have a solution, Captain. All eyes turned to Zephyr, the Grolaxian engineer they had rescued from Kyrilax Prime. She stepped forward, her violet eyes gleaming with persistence. There's a rebel outpost hidden in an uncharted nebula. They opposed Tsenkethi rule and might be willing to help us. Lewis exchanged a look with Hawkins. It was a risk, but they were out of options. Set a course, he ordered. Days later, the Prometheus drifted into a swirling maelstrom of cosmic dust and energy. At its heart, a massive asteroid loomed, pockmarked with small lights and docking bays. As they approached, a harsh voice crackled over the comms. Unidentified vessel. State your business or be destroyed. Lewis leaned forward. This is Captain Lewis of the Earthship Prometheus. We seek sanctuary and repairs. A tense silence followed. Then, proceed to Docking Bay 3. Any hostile action will be met with lethal force. The Prometheus eased into the cavernous hangar, settling onto the deck with a groan of stressed metal. As the airlock cycled open, Lewis led a small team out to meet their hosts. A group of aliens waited, weapons trained on the newcomers. At their head stood a tall, lean Grolaxian female, her scaled skin a deep indigo. Her eyes narrowed as she regarded Lewis. I am Zara, she said, her voice cold. Why should we help you, human? How do we know you're not just another conquering force? Lewis met her gaze steadily. We're here because we share a common enemy. The Tsenkethi threaten not just humanity, but all free peoples of the galaxy. He gestured to the battered Prometheus. We've struck a blow against them, but at great cost. Help us, and together we can end their tyranny once and for all. Zara's expression remained impassive, but Lewis sensed a flicker of interest. She turned to one of her lieutenants, speaking rapidly in a language Lewis didn't recognize. After a moment, she faced him again. You may stay, for now, but know that we'll be watching you closely. As rebel engineers swarmed over the Prometheus, beginning repairs, Lewis gathered his senior staff in a makeshift war room. Sorensen hunched over a console, the axiom pulsing gently beside him. What have you learned? Lewis asked. Sorensen looked up, his eyes wide with excitement and fear. It's incredible, sir. The axiom isn't just a weapon. It's a tool for manipulating the very fabric of reality itself. With enough power, it could create localized subspace rifts of tremendous destructive potential. Lewis leaned in, his mind racing. Could we use it against the Tsenkethi homeworld? Theoretically, yes, Sorensen nodded. but we'd need an astronomical amount of energy to activate it fully. A plan began to form in Lewis's mind. He turned to the others. We use the teleportation drive to redirect the energy of a nearby pulsar. It's risky, but it might be our only shot at ending this war. As the days passed, an uneasy alliance formed between the human crew and the rebel forces. Lewis and Zara spent long hours in tense negotiations, slowly building a fragile trust. Finally, the Prometheus was as ready as it would ever be. Lewis stood on the bridge, watching the swirling energies of the pulsar grow larger on the screen. "All hands, brace for maneuver," he ordered. "Sorensen, stand by with the Axiom." The ship dove toward the pulsar, alarms blaring as deadly radiation battered its shields. For a heart-stopping moment, Lewis thought they had miscalculated. Then Sorensen's voice rang out. "Energy transfer complete. The Axiom is at full power." But their victory was short-lived. The ship shuddered violently, consoles exploding in showers of sparks. "Teleportation drive is offline," Hawkins reported grimly. "We've got one shot at this, Captain." Lewis gripped the arms of his chair. His face hardened. "Then we make it count. Set course for the Tzenkethi homeworld." As the Prometheus limped away from the pulsar, the rebel fleet fell into formation around them. On the main viewer, Zara's face appeared, her expression resolute. "We're with you, Captain Lewis, but remember your promise. The Axiom is to be used for surgical strikes only. Its power for mass destruction is too great." Lewis nodded solemnly. "Understood. We end this war today, but not at the cost of becoming what we fight against." Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. A massive Tzenkethi fleet materialized from hyperspace, led by General Murlock's flagship. "All ships, battle formations," Lewis ordered, his voice steady despite the odds arrayed against them. "This is it. Everything we fought for comes down to this moment." As the two fleets hurtled toward each other, the Axiom pulsed with terrifying power, ready to reshape reality itself in the crucible of the coming battle. The Prometheus shuddered as it emerged from hyperspace, flanked by the rebel fleet. The Tzenkethi homeworld loomed before them, a swirling orb of blue and green surrounded by orbital defense platforms. Lewis stood on the bridge, his lips pursed as he surveyed the final preparations. "Status report." Sorensen's fingers danced across his console. "Axiom chamber is primed, Captain. Energy levels are stable, but we're pushing the ship's systems to their absolute limits." "Understood." Lewis tapped his comm. "Engineering, how are we looking down there?" Chief Engineer Reeves' voice crackled over the speaker. "We've rerouted every scrap of power we can spare, sir. The ship's a ticking time bomb, but she'll hold together for one last shot." Lewis nodded grimly. "It'll have to be enough." Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Hawkins's eyes widened as she studied her tactical display. "Sir, we've got incoming. It's Murlock's dreadnought." The massive Tzenkethi warship materialized from hyperspace, its weapons already charging. Lewis gripped the arms of his chair. "All ships, battle formations. We need to buy time for the Axiom." The rebel fleet scattered, engaging Murlock's forces in a desperate bid to protect the Prometheus. Energy beams lanced across space, punctuated by the silent blooms of exploding ships. On the Prometheus bridge, consoles sparked and smoked as the ship took hit after hit. Lewis bellowed over the chaos, "Sorensen, status on the Axiom!" "Almost there," Sorensen shouted back, his face illuminated by the pulsing glow of the artifact. "We just need a few more minutes." A massive explosion rocked the ship, nearly throwing Lewis from his chair. "We don't have a few more minutes!" Hawkins' voice cut through the din. "Captain, our shields are failing! We can't take much more of this!" Lewis's mind raced, weighing impossible choices. Then Hawkins stood, her expression resolute. "Sir, I have an idea, but it's a one-way trip." Their eyes met, volumes passing between them in that silent moment. Lewis nodded, understanding. "Do it, Commander." Hawkins saluted crisply, then turned to a small team of officers. "With me, we're going to buy the captain some time." As they left the bridge, Lewis turned his attention back to the battle. The rebel fleet was being decimated, but they had succeeded in drawing most of Murloc's fire away from the Prometheus. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then Sorensen's triumphant cry rang out. "Axiom is at full power. We're ready to fire." Lewis took a deep breath, steadying himself. "This is it. May whatever gods are out there forgive us for what we're about to do." He raised his hand, prepared to give the order that would doom his crew, but save humanity. "Fire the—" His words were cut off as a blinding flash filled the view screen. One of the rebel carriers, struck by a solar pulse from Murloc's ship, careened wildly through space, directly into the path of the Axiom's charged beam. "No!" Lewis shouted, but it was too late. The Axiom fired, its unimaginable energies tearing through the rebel ship in a horrific display of cosmic fury. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the beam, diminished but still terrifyingly powerful, lanced onwards towards the Tzenkethi homeworld. It struck not the planet itself, but the very fabric of space-time around it. Reality itself seemed to scream as a rift opened at the edge of the Tzenkethi system. Planets, moons, and ships alike were drawn inexorably towards the hellish maw of warped physics. Lewis stared in horror and awe as the once mighty Tzenkethi capital began to unravel before his eyes, entire continents shredding apart as they were consumed by the void. Murloc's dreadnought, caught in the rift's pull, twisted grotesquely before vanishing into the singularity. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the cosmic maelstrom subsided. Where the heart of the Tzenkethi Empire had stood, only a scarred and empty region of space remained. Warning klaxons blared throughout the Prometheus as systems failed across the ship. Lewis struggled to his feet, surveying the ruined bridge. Bodies lay motionless among sparking consoles and twisted metal. With trembling fingers, he activated the ship-wide comm. His voice, hoarse and strained, echoed through the dying vessel. "That's how we humans do things. We break the rules, even the rules of physics. We shook the foundations of reality itself to defeat that which could not be defeated through conventional means. You underestimated us at your peril." As the last word left his lips, the bridge plunged into darkness. Lewis sank into his chair, the weight of their Pyrrhic victory settling heavily upon him. In the distance, the surviving Allied ships began to regroup, their crews struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. The Prometheus drifted silently among the debris field, a testament to the terrible price paid for humanity's survival. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Lewis closed his eyes, allowing himself a moment of grief for those lost, and trepidation for the uncertain future that lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.